What's up, everybody? We got a double dose of the pondering, peaceful Clayton of Peace as I ponder about the perplexities that have pillaged the brains of the people in the fighting game community. If you like the videos, like, sub, silly comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks, Super Chat, PayPal, Patreon. Obviously, if you want to support the channel, that does help. Thank you. So I want to talk about today, why is it so hard for the fighting game community or some big brain, galaxy brain, to actually make a good made, like fan made fighting game, right? Because when you think about it, I've said this many times before, you would think that it should be easy. A fighting game is what? 2 characters on the screen, maybe more if it's a tag team game, right? A background and some music. It shouldn't be that hard, and yet it is seemingly impossible and has yet to be done. And yet we have things, I was thinking about this recently, besides the fact that I made one of my, how I would change Street Fighter videos again. I was thinking about it like, you think about other fan-made stuff, right? Have you ever heard of My House? It's a famous Doom sort of fan-made game, I guess, or maybe a famous fan-made Doom map, maybe you would call it. It's quite famous. It even has, documentaries basically, about it. This is a small one, but maybe give this guy's channel a view if you want to. He's a smaller YouTuber. I don't know him, but it's interesting to listen to. Where is this? You can see, and the thing has, where are we? I mean, there's just millions and millions of views, of people playing this thing and just how amazing it is, right? And yet it's a fan-made game. The game, it has documentaries about it, about just how fantastical and amazing it is. And I think you would think that, wow, and maybe from a certain perspective, you might think that, Doom should be harder to make than a fighting game. Again, a fighting game is only 2 characters on a screen, generally speaking. Background and some music. And even I've said many times before, I would love, if that Mega Man X Corrupted game ever came out, I would love to play that. Maybe it's just going to be vaporware. But it's sad to see that we don't have anything like that in fighting games. In fighting games, we have Mugen, which is 99%, maybe 99.99% absolute just crap. It's terrible. It doesn't even feel good to play. A lot of the novelty of Mugen, I feel like, is, you can only see so many like holy elemental ice laser group Ryu versus holy angel satanic Akuma Ken, and it's absolute shit. And it's like, what? As my mouse falls. Why don't we have anything cool like Doom, My House, that people will like make documentaries about of how amazing it is, right? The fighting game community has nothing like that. To take a look at this here, and I've said this before, I don't want to talk too much shit about Sirlin because, again, I've met him a handful of times when I was younger in the community. And, he was a nice enough guy to me. I know he's doesn't have the best rap anymore, but every interaction I had with him was cordial, right? But even he is a guy you would say is, probably known as more of a, big brain intellectual kind of guy. But when you read about his book about how he would make Street Fighter 4, certainly it seems pretty strange. 1 button moves, only a 4-button game. And I feel like you already know you're in trouble when you already go like, well, since it's only 1 buttons, we're going to have to give, just the 360 characters, and the charge characters are going to have their own special meter because, 1 button special moves are going to be too good. I feel like you're like, your foot's halfway in the grave. Like you're trying to find something new and you're digging your own, it's just, ugh. And I hate to say it because it's not like I know his credentials are, his rap in the community is not always the best. But again, I say I've never had a bad interaction with him myself, right? Where is the one thing? Did I go too far? Where's the one thing about this shit? Did I miss it? And he has this, what did he want to put at flashback thing? I don't know how many of you have ever seen this. So basically a flashback thing. So almost kind of like a weird way that you could burst. Oh shit, I've been getting hit. But if I have, this is how I read it, right? If you have a super meter and you could whatever, say you get knocked down. Well, I'm going to waste my super meter by holding down these two buttons. It's like a burst. It flashes back to where I got hit. You know what I mean? To save me from that hit that I bit. But I could also do it with a combo. So I could combo the guy, then hold down the buttons, and it keeps the damage that they've had. And then I get to combo them again. But the one way you get out of this is if you taunt. And you know what, though? It sounds weird as fuck, but... and then there's also things they're thinking about, hey, we got to put in our things. We can make our guy move faster or their guy move slower and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? I don't know. You know what? I'll tell you what, it makes you think at least, right? And a lot of times you don't even think when you think. A lot of times when people come up with ideas, you don't even have to think about it. But at least, you know what? I'll give props to Sirlin for at least trying to think outside the box. It sounds weird. I don't know about it being in a Street Fighter game, dude. You know what? You're probably going to think this is probably even more. Just because I appreciate goofiness a little bit, not that I would ever do anything like this in a game, but I would dare say it is more outrageous that Sirlin was promoting one button special moves, but since he knows it would be too powerful for his charge character, he's giving them their own special meter. And just, I think that sounds even more retarded, to be honest with you, but strange. But we don't have anything like My House Doom, right? It's also kind of interesting when you think about that. If you actually look at a lot of the history of people that have been considered galaxy brains in the community, right? Sorry, I just ate dinner. Excuse me. Even Mike Z. I remember Mike Z. He wrote some stuff about how he would do Guilty Gear or something like that. And apparently Mike Z. He's written like he doesn't like execution. It's always, like I said, it's kind of it's always very strange when you see some of the big brain people. They actually talk about how they would change games, what they would do. And I've never played Skullgirls. And of course, I remember when Mike Z was making it, he actually said that I could help him test the game, but it just didn't interest me. It just is not very interesting. Like when I look at the game and when you see a lot of fan made games, although I guess the Sirlin thing wasn't just combos, what I'm about to say, you look at a lot of fan made games and all you see is fucking combos, dude. And it's like, what's interesting about this? What is thought provoking about this? I mean, we have people that for Doom, they've made a map and the fucking thing has documentaries about how amazing and fantastical it is. And we think about the fighting game community and like, do we have anything like that? We have people talking about Back to the Future time travel stuff. You have tech lords that apparently actually hate execution if they wanted to make a game. This shit is weird, dude. We also have, again, we could use the example of 2XKO, supposedly the greatest minds in fighting game history being made for that game, who have come up with so many different excuses for why it's taken so long. Oh, it actually hasn't taken 10 years to make because the first 3 years, that was just research and development. So wait, they actually said, again, that interview is so stupid. To say that the game has actually not been being developed for 10 years because the first 3 years were only R&D, research and development. What the fuck are you researching? You already have the special moves. The designs are given to you on a silver platter, a gold platter even. You don't need to come up with the special moves. You're not coming up with these characters. What are you researching? What are you developing? Right? 10 years. Like I've said this many times before. Excuse me. Just like, I was talking shit about Max recently. You don't have to not play any of these games that I talk shit about. Just like you don't have to not watch Max or not watch somebody that has lied about me, whatever, I would encourage you to, get your feet wet, so to speak, in terms of what other people, their thought processes are, video games, broaden your horizons, right? I mean, I'm not afraid of what anybody's going to say about me. Like they can show proof of that I'm an evil person or if they've done more than me in video games, because I know they haven't, right? That's why other people got to lie about me. Don't watch Clayton. Please don't. He's going to lie about something, even though Clayton shows proof of everything, right? But that's even why I say that 2x KO, that could come out and you know what? You could have fun with the game, right? But never forget that game has been being made for 10 years by the supposed greatest minds in fighting game history. And if you look at their credentials, just a bunch of nepotism, right? Constantly change. They don't even know what the fuck they're doing with the game. It's terrible, right? And it's like, why are fighting games like this? We have a guy that he just fucking made this. And it has documentaries about this. The fighting game community, we have supposedly the greatest minds in fighting game history are being paid by $1 billion company to make a game. 10 years, it's still not out, and they keep coming up with fucking excuse after excuse. And I've said this many times before. I think one of the problems is maybe that you think Doom isn't there are speedrunning contests in Doom, and just like Mega Man, which I talked about earlier, Sonic, there are speedrunning stuff like that. And obviously that is a competitive endeavor to a certain extent, right? But, a lot of these games, Doom, whatever I'm talking about, these are, inherently, let's say, a single player game, right? And I've said this so many times before that one of the best things and the worst things about fighting games is, although you can play a fighting game by yourself, fighting games are inherently competitive, right? And I think that's what clouds the judgment of so many people when they make fighting games or they try to make fighting games, and you can see that even the people that were brought to 2x KO, and you can see why it's being taken so long. These are people that only like one type of game, one type of character archetype, right? I mean, even look at the Clockwork thing. He's worked on a game before. It was just a combo slop game. It wasn't like a thought-provoking game of all these, different new ideas, right? It wasn't like a melting pot of people that enjoy different things. And I've said that so many times before. Why have I been able to do all this stuff consistently year after year, no matter what kind of game I play? Street Fighter game, Marvel game, anime game, Guilty Gear game, poverty game like Karna's Revenge. I've even done 3D games. And I've always been able to put out new stuff, right? And that's because even if there's generally one type of character that I like, one type of archetype that I like, I appreciate fighting games like on a grander scale, right? I can appreciate the characters that even I don't like, right? I can appreciate the archetypes that I don't like, even if it's not something that I don't want to play. And I always say that's one of the worst things now is, again, I said it earlier, 2x KO, what a great example of just nepotism, hiring people that only like one type of game. And it's no wonder that the game has been such a shit show in terms of actually releasing, right? If you want to actually make something great in a fighting game, especially when you think of Doom or something like this is inherently a single player game, right? We're not verse anybody, but you have a fighting game. And guess what? We're versing somebody. And these people seem to think that the only person they're going to verse is somebody that likes the same thing that they do, right? Oh, I'm making a fighting game. I hope the person that I'm playing likes the combo character and rushdown character like I do. Oh, wait, they don't? Well, too bad, because that's the game I'm making, right? Do you get what I'm getting at? We don't have people making these games nowadays that actually enjoy every perspective. Even look at Guilty Gear Strive, right? We talk about Guilty Gear before. Guilty Gear is a game that actually started to succeed. It went from just surviving to succeeding when you could actually see the Street Fighter in it. The old school Street Fighter where every play style was effective, right? Not that saying that old Street Fighter isn't archaic in different ways. Obviously it is, but every play style you see actually can win even at the highest level in old school Street Fighter, right? And there are certain fundamental concepts that are inherent to Street Fighter that once you could see those inherent fundamental concepts being used in games like Guilty Gear XX, which again, watch those videos when I talk about how the dust loop saved Guilty Gear, right? You know, you could see the goodwill in Guilty Gear. And then when you look at interviews for Guilty Gear Strive, again, remember, Guilty Gear Strive was what? Was it 2 years or whatever, almost a beta test, which is already obnoxious, right? You had interviews a year and a half into the game that the own developers admitted they don't know what they put the wall in for. Absolutely ridiculous. Like, can you, what a PR nightmare. I guess it wasn't a PR nightmare because they still kept it in. But, you know, for you read that, it terrible, right? And then what? It wasn't until like the second patch where Kai couldn't be punishable after hitting with a fireball mid-screen away. And the developer, again, it's in the backyard interview. It's almost like, was it almost like a quote, something like, yeah, I guess it was, boy, he didn't say, yeah, I guess he was like, it was stressful that Kai couldn't throw a fireball mid-screen away. I just remember him saying the word stressful. It was stressful that Kai could throw a fireball from mid-screen and then you could punish him after. I guess that was a bad idea. Like, what? Because the guy, he says he doesn't like fireball characters. How can you have people making a game when they are just telling you they don't like certain things, dude? And those are some of the reasons we're never going to have an amazing fan-made fighting game when we have such thin intellectual people that work on these games that are so laser focused, only like one kind of play style, right? And we don't have anybody that even can nurture good ideas. When there's an actual good idea, when there's an actual chance, I've said many times before, Dragon Ball FighterZ, one of the biggest drop balls perhaps ever in fighting games, because there are actually some new ideas. Just the inherent system of the game gives you an opportunity to have new character archetypes, which are normally not possible whatsoever in a fighting game, which is now, fighting games are what, 30 years old now, whatever it might be, 30, 40 years old, whatever, Street Fighter 2, let's say Street Fighter 2, so 91, so 34 years old with 91B or something like that. My math is bad. You know, but again, 34 years, how many new archetypes of fighting characters have we had in fighting games? You know, eventually we got to anime characters and we have, you know, puppet characters, etc. But there's not a lot of new opportunities to have new character archetypes unless the system actually allows it. And Dragon Ball FighterZ was an example of a system that potentially allows for new character archetypes. And that's an idea that is not actually nurtured in the game, right? And again, I guess it's, you know, an unfortunate thing that we have people making games that don't actually appreciate every perspective of fighting games. And because fighting games are inherently competitive, you have to realize that the person you're fighting versus doesn't necessarily like the character that you like. If you like the videos, like, sub, silly comment, share, support the channel if you can. Appreciate it. Thanks. The end.